Welcome, friends, to another exciting episode of A VGM Journey. And I'm your host, The Messenger. The track that we're playing in this week's show is Music 2, also known as the in-game BGM from Puzznic, and that was composed by Tim Follin. We've got another fun show with some pretty amazing music for you guys this week, and I say let's get right into it. And for this next track, it's not coming from a specific game, but a specific mini console, and that is the Sega Genesis Mini 2. And oh man, I am so excited to play this. This is the main theme, and it was composed by Yuzo Koshiro. That track that you just heard, that was the main theme from the Sega Genesis Mini 2, and it was composed by Yuzo Koshiro. That track was really something. And I think Yuzo Koshiro absolutely nailed the sound of the various games that are on the Sega Genesis Mini 2. And if you're not familiar with the Sega Genesis Mini 2, then I could explain that it is a mini console that comes with packed in games. And in this case, there's about 60 games on this thing. And what's really cool is that about 10 of these games, they are Sega CD games, which I thought that was pretty cool. There's still a lot of classic games on this thing, but they've also delved deeper into the Sega Genesis library and brought some more obscure games. And this main theme really reflects on all the various games that are on the Sega Genesis Mini 2. So there's sections that sound like Shining Force 2 and Crusaders of Senti, and there's this one part that sounds like Lightning Force, which I thought was really cool. I'm not sure how easy these things are going to be to find now, as they were being released in a limited quantity, and I wound up jumping on mine early on, so I was pretty lucky for that. But it is a neat little mini console that I highly recommend. This is a really good collection of games. And for this next track, I'm actually going to pull from one of the games, which is this really cool, I don't want to say downgrade version, but a downport of Versus Puyo Puyo Sun. This is hard mode, also known as Schezo's theme. And this was composed by Tatsuhiko Kasuga and Sakuoki Kudo. That track that you just heard, that was Hard Mode, also known as Schezo's theme from the game Versus Puyo Puyo Sun, and that was composed by Tatsuhiko Kasuga and Sakuoki Kudo. This game's a lot of fun, and this song is pretty catchy too. And if you're not familiar with Puyo Puyo, it is a puzzle game where these little jelly things come down and you have to group together 4 or more of them to make them disappear. It's kind of similar to Tetris, but you're not necessarily trying to make full lines. And like I alluded to earlier, this is a downgraded version of the game made specifically for the Sega Genesis Mini 2. And I think that's pretty cool. Is from my quick research, it is based off of a Sega Saturn game, but with a lot of its features stripped out, and there's only a versus mode, which I think that's fine. So it's still a fun multiplayer game. And I think it's easily the best puzzle game on the Sega Genesis Mini 2. So there's a couple other games, but honestly, I don't think they're all that great. And this game is a lot of fun, so that definitely helps. And if you're thinking that track is a little too chill, then this next track, which also happens to be a request from Chris Murray, it would definitely hype you up a bit. And this is coming from the game The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero. This is the boss theme, also known as Arrest the Criminal, and this was composed by Hayato Sonoda, Takahuro Unisuga, Saki Momiyama, and Masanori Osaki. That track that you just heard, that was the boss theme, also known as Arrest the Criminal, from the game The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero. It was composed by Hayato Sonoda, Takahuro Unisuga, Saki Momiyama, and Masanori Osaki. And this was a request by Chris Murray. So thank you, Chris, for that request. We know how much Chris loves his Trails music, and a lot of it is pretty fantastic, and this is no exception. I think a good boss music has to keep you engaged the entire time, but also find itself not to be repetitive at the same time, and I feel like this track goes in a lot of directions, at least instrument-wise, but tone-wise, you know this is going to be energetic, it's going to hype you up. I always feel bad when a lot of these RPG music kind of pops up on the show because I'm not really much of an RPG player. It's not that I don't like them. I think that's quite the opposite. I generally do like them, but they can be very time consuming and sometimes that's just not an option that I have. So I have to pick and choose what I could play. But I can say the easiest way for me to experience these games is just listening to their soundtracks. So it's going to be something I'm going to do. And I just want to once again say thank you, Chris, for that request. We're going to move on to a very interesting track, and that for some reason, it was unused in the North American version of the game. So only Japan and Europe got this. But this is coming from the original Mario Party. The track is Move to the Mambo, and it was composed by Yasunori Mitsuda. That track that you just heard, that was Move to the Mambo from Mario Party, and it was composed by Yasunori Mitsuda. And that's going to just about do it for the show this week. If you like what you've been listening to, have your friends check out the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever podcasting service that you can think of. I'm more than likely going to be on there. You can email the show at vgmjourney@yahoo.com. And you could also check us out on Twitter at VGMJourney. We also have a Discord server for the show, which I will provide a link for that in the show notes, where you could hang out with your fellow VGM journeymen and talk about games, music, and even look at some cool art. We're also going to play things out with one more track, and this is coming from the game The Lost Vikings. This is Rock Concert, also known as Credits, and this was composed by Charles Deenen. Have a good week, everyone.
Kick it.